All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start my next drawing, and this is going to be the Contrapposto Pose. All right, and the way I want to work is I want to kind of try to utilize some of the measurements that we used in the previous drawing, but make it a little more fluid a drawing. So what I'm going to start with over here is I'm going to start clearly identifying where the top of my drawing is going to be and where the bottom of my drawing is going to be. You could do that with a ruler. You could do it freehand like I did. The next thing we want to decide is we want to kind of approximate where halfway is. Now, I don't need you guys to measure that out and make it like dynamically or geometrically perfect, but we want to try to figure what's close. And again, for the purposes of our drawing, we are going to try to consider this halfway point where the hips of our figure is going to be. And if we're drawing a male, a female, if we're drawing them thin, thick, whatever, we're still going to use that as our reference point. For a male figure, we might put it just on the line. For a female figure, we're going to put the hips right on top of the line. The bottom line over here is going to be the ankles. So again, just keep in mind ankles, hips, the top of the head. That's how we're going to lay things out. Now, once again, to draw this, and it doesn't matter which character I'm going to draw, what I want to do is I want to put one line down the center of the page. You could do this with a ruler. I want you to start getting comfortable doing this without, but that's going to be not our line of symmetry. This time is going to be like where the weight of our character is going to be. All right? And one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to look to draw the hips. So in the way that I'm working now, we obviously went through a few different ways that we could draw the hips. I'm going to work with our little diamond shape, okay? Our sort of home plate diamond kind of shape. From here, halfway up from here to here, I can decide where that is. This is basically where the chest is going to be. And for my figure, I can kind of flare out a little bit and then add a little bit more on top of that. This will be my torso, my hips and chest blend. The space I have left will give me plenty of space for the head and our jawline and our neck. In the case of the Contrapposto pose, right now what we're doing is we're drawing this like perfectly symmetrical. But what I want to do is I want to kind of create the effect that this character is sort of leaning a little bit. Now, I'm using this first one that you see to the side over here, okay? Where if I look, it looks like her hips are straight across and her shoulders are straight across, but her legs overlap. So when I draw her legs, I'm going to realize that one of them is in front of it, and if you notice, both her feet end up right below her chin. So halfway down on this box is where I'll put the knee, and I'm going to draw the leg in front first, keeping in mind that the weight of this character is equally distributed on these 2 feet. That first leg and that knee and that foot that's going to go down below it is all going to line up right underneath the chin. And again, for my foot, to draw that foot that's going to be basically in a high heel, I'm going to start with my triangle and then connect that up to the ankle. And this is where I'll put a little bump. The other leg for this character is behind this first one. I'm going to draw the thigh so it disappears a little bit. All I see behind that leg is just a little bit of that calf and then a little bit of the heel to this foot. So whenever we're drawing overlap, my feeling is draw the leg that's in front first. Now, we have arms on this character, and we can see these arms are in a particular pose. What I like to do, instead of trying to just draw them, is number one, I'll kind of decide roughly how long they should be. Now, again, we know how long they should be, but she's holding them out of the sides, not all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I do a little stick figure version of them, and I look to see where does the hands hit on the hips. How much space do we have under the arms? Trying to give me a sense of what those arms should look like. This one comes out a little bit further. This one's a little closer to the body. When we do this, that's going to create some odd sort of lengths and angles for things like the forearms. But if I'm following what's going on in the picture, if this elbow is a little bit lower than this elbow, I'll be fine. With that little stick figure, then I can just sort of add that little bit of thickness for the upper arm and then the lower arm. And again, that forearm should always taper down at the wrist. For the hands in this particular thing, a lot of it's going to be covered up by the hip. We want to create a little shape. I'm just going to kind of copy the shape that I see on the actual drawing. This one's sticking more on the back side of her body. I'm just going to end it like that. And this gives me my first fashion figure that I'm drawing in this contrapposto kind of pose. I'm going to switch this one now to this one, which is a little bit more leaned over. Move my picture over. I'm going to use the same proportions. I'm going to draw long ways on the paper. I'm going to draw nice and big. And again, where should I put her hips? I need to put her hips right on that center line. But her hips are leaning downwards. Okay? So when I draw this diamond shape, I need to draw this diamond shape so it looks like it's tilting. I like to start with the center of the body because that gives me really a sense of the weight and where everything should go. Now, if I start to look at her drawing, I look and try to think of what her spine is doing, her backbone. Now, if you follow the hips, you can see that backbone, this line that goes down the center, is leaning to the side and then straightening out. I like to put that little line in. Kind of gives me an idea of what I should be doing and how I should be posing the torso. And the hips going up this way, but her shoulders are going back that way. These are helpful little guidelines for me when I start to draw my torso, because then it gives me an idea of how that's supposed to fit in. You'll find out that when you do it this way, this side is going to be a little bit shorter than that side, but that's what happens when the body starts tilting that way. I'm going to use the same space that I have over here for the head. The head can be tilted to the side or it could be straight up. In this case, it's straight up. And now what I want to think about is wherever I have that head, directly below the head should be the leg or the foot that's taking the weight of this character. As I look at how those legs are, I could see one is tilted in a lot, the one in the front. I like to draw that one in the front first. Putting the knee again at that halfway point of the bottom part. I'll look at that angle or tilt of the lower part of the leg and draw that. And then once I get to my foot, I'll add that little triangle. For the other leg, I'm going to want to just show what's sticking out over here. But as I'm drawing it, I want to make sure that that foot ends up right beneath the head. Once I'm done with that, you can see that this particular body has her arms really kind of straight sticking out. So I want to keep that in mind, and I want to make that arm, and you can see on the actual drawing, if you look at where her hip is, you can see that's pretty much where the wrist is. So keeping that in mind, I would do my light little sort of stick figure of where the arm is supposed to go. I would divide this in half. My lower part of the arm, and my upper part of the arm. For the hand, again, you can do that little bump on one side, that little index finger. Their version of it is a little bit more geometric than mine, but it's the same basic idea. On this side, again, the hand is at the same sort of level, which means down here below the hips, this arm is pretty much hugging the body the entire time. And put a little indent here for where the elbow would be. And then again, a little bump for the thumb, and a little index finger. This is going to be my fashion figure leaning to the side. I'm going to do one more. I did a few last class as well, the last class I was in. I'm going to jump to the internet really quick, and I can use any of the one of these. Pinterest is not going to let me use them, of course, but I will go by what I can open up. And you can see in this particular pose, the model is standing with one leg straight. That one leg falls right underneath that foot. You can see their shoulders are tilting up. I'm going to just put that to the side over here as my reference. Come back to my drawing. I'll make myself some space on this side. Again, I'm going to put the hips on this line, sitting right on this line. I'm going to look at her hips and see that they're tilting downwards. So when I draw the hips, I need to draw those hips that they are tilting downwards. So that diamond shape that I'm making is slanting one way. If I look at what her backbone, or think about what her backbone is doing, it's sort of curving up this way and back the other way, like an S. So I'm going to kind of give myself a little bit of a line to kind of give me an idea of what's going on with her torso. Her shoulders, they are leaning upward. Hips leaning down, shoulders up. So when I draw this torso, I've got to draw it so it bends with that bend in her spine. I've got the area for her head. I could start off with my circle once again, add my jawline, add a little bit more for the top of her shoulders, just like I did on this side. I'm going to look right now where the head is, and I'm going to go straight down to the ankles. Take a look at this one leg that's sticking out. This one leg has to end up right here. So when I draw that one, I draw it with that curve of her hip sticking out. I draw it with the thigh and the knee coming up to that same area that I drew before. And then what I'm going to do is make her lower part of her leg go down to her ankles. In this case down here, just another triangle for the foot. The other leg is sticking out a little bit. The hip is lower, which means the knee is going to be a little bit lower. I can draw a little sort of stick figure layout of where that leg is going to go. And this will be different for every pose you look at. But I like to draw the little stick figure just to kind of give myself a sense of like, where are the bones in this body going? What direction are they going in? I notice that the knee is also leaning down here. Once again, for the foot, we don't have to go too crazy for the foot right now. I'm just going to make a little triangular shape. Now with her arms, we've got one sticking out this way, with her arm touching her head, with her hand touching her head. I can't give you a good idea of how to measure that, but what I will tell you is draw the stick figure and compare it to what you're looking at. Her other arm on the other side, it's hard to see behind the jacket. It's also going up towards her hair. That arm's coming out. I'll add a little bit of thickness to that forearm, thin by the wrist, thicker by the elbow. Add that little bit to her upper arm. Same thing on this side. Sort of turkey drumstick for that part of the arm, the lower part of the arm. A little bit of thickness for her shoulders. The hands, we can keep them simple. And we have the basic layout of that particular figure. So what I did today is I drew 3 figures in the relaxed Contrapposto pose. You can find drawings like this using the ones that I gave you, or you can even look at actual photographs online. But the way I want you to work is to divide your paper in the same way that we did our previous drawings. Think about that the middle of the drawing should be where the hips sit. Halfway down from there is where the knees are, and then beneath that last mark on the bottom is where the feet should hang. Looking at the top portion of the body, somewhere about halfway up should be where the chest is. And that'll give you plenty of room for the head and torso. For the arms, don't make them too short. If the body is standing up fairly straight, the hands should go beneath your hips. If you happen to have a pose where the arms are in a different position, try to lay out a little stick figure, sort of like bone, to let you kind of get an idea of where they should go. But one thing you should think about when you draw those arms is that if I draw this arm like this and she straightens the arm out, will she be able to touch her thigh, or will they be too short? And when you start drawing, even if you're looking at pictures from the internet, look at the angle of the shoulders and the angle of the hips. If one is going up one way, the other one is probably going down the opposite way. Every one of these poses where you have one leg sort of relaxed or the other one straight, the straight leg's foot is going to be beneath the head. And that's because that's how it's keeping the weight up. What I want you guys to do for the next part, for those of you done with the figures, is we're going to do 3 more bodies. You don't have to draw female characters. You can draw male characters. You can draw them thick. You can draw them thin. But what I want to see is, I want to see, like my drawings, I want to see a looser version of your drawing, and I want to see that character standing in a contrapposto manner, a relaxed manner. I'm going to stop recording this and post it.